In this video, I'm going to be giving the biblical view of marriage. Now, of course, I'm only about 16 years old. I have no personal experience in marriage. So even while making this video and looking over the verses, I myself have been looking over them trying to see what they've meant. And in this video, I'm going to teach you what I've learned from these Bible verses, and I want you to know that it's not me giving you this advice, it's me repeating what the Bible says and giving my interpretation. The first part is about marriage as a sacred covenant. And I have here Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Now this emphasizes that marriage is you and your wife becoming one flesh, no longer two people, but one flesh. And that shows that it's more than just, oh, I'm waiting for marriage to have children. It's two people coming together and uniting. And the way I see this is that at that point, you no longer focus on what you want in that marriage, and rather, as a husband, you focus on what the wife wants, and the wife focuses on what the husband wants. And that relationship, I think, is going to lead to a lifelong marriage. I think the reason, and I can only speak from relationships, not marriages, but I think the reason that relationships don't work, especially like in high school and junior high and things like that, is because one, I don't think it's taken very seriously, and two, they're not focusing on what each other want. I think at that age they're still focusing on what they want themselves, and so that's why it just falls apart so quickly. Malachi 2:14. The Lord has been a witness between you and the wife of your youth. She is your companion and your wife by covenant. This shows that marriage is not just an agreement between two people on earth. It involves God. And God says that this is a covenant that you shall keep, and you too shall be in a marriage, and you should enjoy the gifts of God in that marriage, but only in that marriage. And this shows that the marriage is meant to be lifelong, and it's meant to be built on commitment. And the word covenant shows that it's an agreement between two people to stay together as a lifelong love and commitment. That is what God calls marriage to be. Then we have Matthew chapter 19 verse 6. So they are no longer two but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let nobody separate. This shows that marriage is not just two humans on earth. It involves God. And now Jesus is saying, let no one separate them. He's saying it's a lifelong commitment. Once you marry somebody, except for the exception of sexual immorality, Jesus says you should have a lifelong commitment with your partner. And this shows how sacred marriage is, because God is truly involved. And now this next section is going to be about roles and love in marriage. So I have Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. This shows an example of how Christ and the church are like a marriage between a husband and a wife. And we know that Christ is the head of the church. He is the leader. He is the reason for the church. So I want you to understand that in marriage, of course, the husband should be looked up to by the wife. But don't get confused, because let's say the husband tells his wife to go murder somebody. Obviously, she shouldn't do that. So she should still prioritize the teachings of God over her husband, but still submit to her husband. Not in domination, but out of love and compassion for each other. This verse has a high standard as being a husband, which I will likely be in the future. Christ is saying we should have a sacrificial love for our wives. As Christ sacrificed himself on the cross for the church, we should have a sacrificial love for our wives. And that, I think, is different from a lot of marriages. I think a lot of people in marriage are really focused on what they want. But whenever you are very focused on what your partner wants, and your partner is very focused on what you want, you have a very good relationship because you get what you want from your partner and your partner gets what they want from you. And I think that is going to lead to a lifelong marriage. And then we have some prior verses. Still Ephesians chapter 5, but verse 22 and 23. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ was the head of the church. This reinforces the idea of Jesus being the head of the church and the husband being the head of a marriage. And it shows that wives should submit to their husbands. But as husbands, that calls us to be, and that puts some pressure to be a good leader and a good husband. Because not only are you going to be leading your wife, you're also going to be leading your children. And so this emphasizes the importance of being a good husband, as Christ was an amazing human being on earth, committing no sin and being an amazing teacher. That sets a very high standard for us as husbands. 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 7. Husbands, in the same way be considerate as you live with your wives, and treat them with respect, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. Now what Paul is saying here is he highlights the importance of husbands treating their wives with respect and with understanding. You have to understand your wife as you try to understand God. And the note about prayer shows that God truly values a way that a husband respects his wife and the way he treats his wife. And this again emphasizes the fact that marriage isn't just two people, but it also involves God. And the last section, section 3, is about faithfulness and a lifelong commitment. Hebrews chapter 13 verse 4. Marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure, for God will judge the adulterer and all the sexually immoral. And this shows how much God actually values marriage, to the point where he is going to judge those who take his gift and use it for the wrong reason. This shows us that once you are married, you are to keep that covenant with your wife and with God, and you are to live that out with a lifelong commitment. So this shows that you should not just choose your partner because of physical attractiveness. This shows that you should choose someone that you want to spend literally the rest of your life with, because marriage is incredibly important. And when making a decision to marry someone, you should be very considerate and ask yourself many questions in order to know that the person you are marrying is someone that you are willing to spend the rest of your life with and struggle with and have children with, because that is what God calls us to do. And we have Proverbs chapter 5 verses 18 and 19. May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. May you ever be intoxicated with her love. This verse highlights really well the emotional side of marriage. It says, may you be intoxicated with her love, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. This is saying marriage should be something that you enjoy and that you are constantly grateful for. You should be telling your partner how grateful you are for them, and how grateful you are for your marriage, and how grateful you are to God from the covenant that you have kept. Because marriage is something that should be enjoyed between two people on earth. And God has given us many gifts within marriage, such as children, joyfulness, maintaining respect and understanding of each other. Then we have 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verses 10 and 11. A wife must not separate from her husband, and a husband must not divorce his wife. This again emphasizes that marriage is a lifelong commitment, and emphasizes the importance of choosing the right person. And again, do not choose a marriage partner just out of physical attractiveness. I know that's such a temptation in the modern world that's really seen, where you have these, alpha male guys, whatever you want to call them, who just date a bunch of girls that are attractive. And that's just a very bad model for us as youth, as who to choose as our wife. And what you must understand that marriage is a lifelong thing. If you are a Christ follower, you should basically remove the idea of divorce at all. Don't ever use divorce as a backup idea. Oh, well, if it goes wrong, I can divorce. No. It is a lifelong commitment, and it is meant to be that way. And God has given us a covenant to keep with our wives. It's time to do the hard work, starting now.